My name is Neil Dooley. I'm currently working on a research project with a number of colleagues at the Sussex European Institute on EU27 responses to Brexit. And broadly speaking, we're interested in how the British government, as well as other EU member state governments, have responded to Brexit, both throughout the negotiations and beyond. So we've published an early report on this project with the UK in a Changing Europe, as well as an article for the Washington Post. But I want to talk about a paper I'm currently completing, which focuses on the conflicting approaches to Brexit negotiations, followed by the British and the Irish governments. And this paper I'm working on, it starts with a puzzle. While Ireland and Northern Ireland barely featured during the 2016 referendum campaign, they have been absolutely central to the negotiations and to the ongoing politics of Brexit. And over the past 5 years, I think there have been two main explanations for why Ireland was so central to Brexit. For some, the centrality of Irish concerns in Brexit negotiations represents core EU values of solidarity and peace. Whereas for others, Ireland has been used cynically and opportunistically by the European Union as a bargaining chip, as a way of kind of extracting concessions from the British government. My argument is that both of these kind of miss the mark. The significance of Ireland in Brexit negotiations actually has little to do with EU opportunism or core values. Instead, what we see is that Ireland couldn't take EU support for granted and had to launch an intensive diplomatic effort to convince the EU27 to rally behind its interests. The British government, on the other hand, made a number of quite serious errors in its approach to Ireland, specifically in negotiations, which ended up entrenching European Union support for Ireland. Together, these conflicting approaches explain the approach to Ireland in Brexit negotiations that the European Union supported. To develop this argument, I conducted 2 rounds of semi-structured interviews with Irish politicians in the summer of 2017 and in 2019. I also drew in interviews from senior British political figures involved in the negotiations, which are available through the excellent UK in a Changing Europe Witness Archive. And what these interviews show is precisely this story of conflicting policy styles. Irish political figures approach Brexit in what I describe as a highly deliberative way. They knew how important it was to secure support from EU member states and from the European Commission. They knew that issues around the border in Ireland had to be high up on the agenda. They had to be tackled as part of the first stage of negotiations rather than in the future relationship negotiations. And they insisted that there could be no return to a hard border on the island of Ireland. And to achieve support from the EU27 and the EU for this position, Ireland spent a lot of time in the immediate aftermath of the referendum meeting with the EU and EU27 member states. They spent a lot of time actually educating their counterparts on the difficulties that Ireland was now facing. They spent a lot of time on highly technical discussions and a lot of time developing a domestic political consensus for a single approach to Brexit negotiations, which all Irish political parties could get behind. And what I found is that this deliberative, very much non-hard bargaining style really matched up well with the policy style that tends to be standard in the European Union itself. Ireland's approach to Brexit negotiations really slotted in well with this. The British approach, on the other hand, served to entrench the EU position against that of Britain. I found that the British government actually pursued 3 different approaches to the issue of Ireland at different points in the negotiations, which I label as lack of engagement, magical thinking, and ultimately delayed deliberation. In the year following the referendum result, issues relating to Ireland and Northern Ireland were decidedly peripheral to the British government. It's very clear from interviews that issues around the border were not taken very seriously, or at least they were not high up on the agenda of negotiators in Britain. And even this was still the case as red lines were drawn around leaving the single market and the customs union. And consequences of this, what this would mean for negotiations on Ireland, was not high up on the agenda. When British negotiators did engage more directly with Irish concerns, I found that there was an approach that was characterized by proposals of untested or non-existent technological solutions, narratives of blame, and fighting battles on things like the sequencing of talks. But perhaps most surprisingly, I found that there are key moments when British negotiators engage with Ireland and Northern Ireland much more seriously and in a much more deliberative style. These key moments of what is called delayed deliberation tended to lead to agreements on the first iteration of the Irish backstop and later to agreement on the Northern Irish Protocol. However, and very interestingly, there is a pattern that this delayed deliberation tends to be followed by a return to the kinds of magical thinking that preceded it. So I'm hoping to complete and publish this article in early 2022.